Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're going to dig into something that's, well, kind of shiny, gold IRAs.
Ooh, yeah. Always a fascinating topic.
Right, and we're basing this exploration on an article, uh, let me see. Yeah, it's called How Wealthy Investors Are Using Gold IRAs to Hedge Against Dollar Devaluation.
Definitely an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people hear gold IRA and they think, okay, that's got to be for like super rich folks.
Yeah,
Or,
I can see how you'd think that.
yeah, but this article actually challenges that.
It really does. It dives into how gold IRAs can be a good strategy for, well, anyone who's looking to diversify, really protect their savings, especially with all the economic uncertainty going on.
Okay, so let's back up for a sec. What exactly is a gold IRA? I mean, I'm picturing like Scrooge McDuck diving into a vault of gold coins.
Wouldn't that be nice? It's a bit more structured than that, though, yeah. It's a self-directed IRA, but instead of the usual stocks, bonds, mutual funds, you're holding physical precious metals.
Precious metals. So we're talking gold, obviously. What else?
Gold's the big one, but you can also have silver, platinum, even palladium in there.
Okay, so it's like having a little piece of Fort Knox in your retirement plan.
Yeah.
But why go for the gold? Literally. Why is it like the hot commodity, especially when we're talking retirement?
Well, one word. Inflation. You've seen how prices just keep going up, right? It's like your money's worth less and less every year.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
Right. Well, gold, historically, it's held its value during those crazy inflationary periods. It's like it helps protect your purchasing power from being totally eroded.
So like if a loaf of bread costs $5 today,
Right.
and then in 10 years it costs like 15 bucks,
Oof. Yeah.
theoretically the gold you bought today could like still buy you a loaf of bread.
That's the idea, yeah. Preserve your wealth, especially when you're retired and not bringing in a steady paycheck anymore. The article actually talks about the 1970s, the whole stagflation thing.
Ooh, yeah. I've heard about that.
Stock market, it totally tanked. But guess what? Gold, it went through the roof.
Whoa.
Yeah, it can be pretty wild.
Okay, that's compelling. But isn't gold also like known for its price swings? I mean, how does that make it a safe haven?
That's a really good point. It's important to remember safe haven doesn't mean like no fluctuations. Gold does have its ups and downs, yeah. But historically, it tends to move in the opposite direction of stocks.
Okay, so when the market takes a dip,
Gold often goes up, yeah. It offers that counterbalance to your portfolio.
I see. So it's like that saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. You're spreading out your risk, adding something that doesn't just follow the stock market's every move.
Gotcha. Makes sense. But honestly, gold still feels kind of, I don't know, mysterious, like complicated.
Hmm.
Is it really accessible to like the average person? Or is it just for, billionaires?
That's another myth this article busts. You don't need a Swiss bank account to get started with a gold IRA. There are providers out there with minimum investments around like $5,000.
5,000. Okay, that's a lot more approachable than I was imagining. But I got to ask, what about scams? I mean, I've heard some pretty scary stories about like shady gold dealers and things like that. Is that something to be worried about with gold IRAs?
Like any investment, there are always some bad apples out there, yeah. But that's why knowledge is so important. The article really stresses doing your research, really vetting companies, making sure they're legit, checking reviews, licenses, all that good stuff.
So being a savvy consumer.
Exactly. A good provider will be totally transparent. They'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, good to know. So it's about doing your due diligence and not falling for any like get rich quick schemes.
Exactly. And choosing the right provider, it's so important. They'll guide you through the whole process, setting up your account, funding it, even choosing your metals and making sure they're stored safely.
Speaking of choosing a provider, what should people look for? Like what separates the good ones from the not so good ones?
Well, transparency is huge, like we talked about. You want a company that's upfront about their fees, how they store things, what investment choices you have.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah. And good customer support is crucial too. You want to feel confident that you can get help if you need it. And of course, a solid reputation. Look for companies with good reviews, both from clients and industry experts.
So basically, do your homework, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of the same principles apply whether you're investing in stocks or precious metals.
You got it. It's about making informed decisions, not letting emotions or hype lead you astray.
I like it. Well, this is all super interesting, but I'm also curious about like the human side of all this. The article mentions some real life examples of people who've used gold IRAs. Any that stood out to you?
Oh, absolutely. There's this one about a couple, the Johnsons. They were in their early 60s and, getting a little nervous about the stock market. It's been a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, no kidding.
So they decided to diversify, put about 15% of their retirement savings into gold
Hmm.
through a gold IRA.
Interesting. And how'd that work out for them?
Well, over the next few years, their gold holdings actually appreciated in value while the stock market, kept swinging up and down. So their gold IRA basically acted as a buffer, gave them some peace of mind.
It's a real-world example of how gold can, like, help balance out those risks.
Exactly, especially in uncertain times.
Okay, what about the other example?
Oh, right. There's this guy, Bob, who is a retired executive. He was really worried about inflation, just eating away at his savings. So he moved some of his traditional IRA money into a gold IRA. And as inflation climbed, the value of his gold holdings went up too.
So it was about protecting his buying power, making sure he could still enjoy his retirement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting. So we have two different people, different concerns, and they both found a way to make a gold IRA work for them.
It really shows how versatile this kind of investment can be. It's not one size fits all, but it's a powerful tool for anyone who wants to diversify, manage risk, and, protect their savings from economic ups and downs.
I'm really liking this. So we've covered the basics, busted some myths, heard some real-life stories. But for you, what's really sticking out from this deep dive so far?
What's really hitting home for me is this emphasis on wealth preservation. We hear so much about growing wealth, making more money, but protecting what you've already earned, especially as you head into retirement, it's crucial.
It's almost like, yeah, playing defense, right? You can score all the points you want, but if your defense is weak, you're going to lose the game.
Oh, I love that analogy. And gold, with its history of holding value for like centuries, that's a strong defender, Bruce.
You know, it's funny. My grandmother used to say, gold is the one thing they're not making any more of.
Hmm.
And I never really got what she meant, but now I kind of do.
Yeah.
It's like, it's scarce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that impacts its value.
Yeah, she was onto something. That finite supply of gold, it's a big reason why it's held its value for so long. Unlike, our money today, governments can just print more whenever they want.
Oh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. But speaking of money, what about taxes? Like, is a gold IRA treated differently than a regular IRA when it comes to taxes?
Oh, that's an important question. And it's a little tricky, to be honest. It really depends on how you fund it and when you take the money out. Like if you roll over money from a traditional IRA into a gold IRA, you'll still owe taxes on that money when you withdraw it in retirement.
Okay, so it's not a total tax haven, but more like
Yeah,
you're delaying the taxes, like with a traditional IRA.
exactly. But there might be some tax advantages, though. Some folks think because gold is considered a collectible, it might be taxed at a lower rate on capital gains when sold outside of a retirement account.
Interesting. So like, there's a lot to consider on the tax side of things.
Definitely. Talk to a tax advisor. They can help you figure out how it all works for your specific situation.
Good advice. Now, you mentioned earlier that gold is a safe haven asset. Can we unpack that a bit? Like, what does that really mean when we're talking about, the economy as a whole?
Yeah, for sure. It's a term you hear a lot, but it's important to understand what it really means. Think of it this way. A safe haven asset is like a shelter when the economic weather gets rough.
Like a storm.
Yeah, like a storm. So things like political instability, currency fluctuations, even a global pandemic, all that stuff can make investors nervous. So they start looking for places to put their money where they think it'll hold its value.
So it's like a financial bunker, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And gold, with its track record of weathering those storms, it often becomes that bunker. People flock to it because they believe it'll hold its value, maybe even go up in value while other stuff is, tanking.
It's like that old saying, when in doubt, go for the gold.
Yeah.
So if gold is this safe haven, why doesn't everyone just buy tons of it?
That's where risk tolerance comes in. We talked about this before. Gold can be volatile. It might have done well during some rough patches, but there's no guarantee, its price could drop. And some people just can't stomach that kind of uncertainty.
So it's a balancing act. Risk versus reward.
Exactly. And remember, gold shouldn't be your only investment. It's just one piece of the puzzle, one part of a bigger strategy.
Okay, that makes sense. So if someone's thinking about adding gold to their retirement plan, how much should they put in? Is there like a magic number?
I wish it were that easy. Unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It depends on a bunch of things. Your age, your risk tolerance, your goals, your overall financial situation. It's all got to be factored in.
So you can't just say, hey, everyone, put 10% into gold and call it a day.
Right. It's much more nuanced than that. And this is where working with a financial advisor can be really helpful. They can take a look at everything, your whole financial picture, and come up with a plan that's right for you.
All right, so we've talked about the good stuff. But are there any downsides to gold IRAs? Like anything we haven't covered yet?
Good question. It's always important to look at both sides, right? One thing to keep in mind is that gold doesn't generate income, like stocks that pay dividends or bonds that pay interest.
Oh, right. So you're not getting those regular payouts that you might get with other investments.
Exactly. It's more about the potential for its value to increase over time.
Okay, I see. And that's where diversification comes in again,
Yeah.
right? Having a mix of investments that can potentially generate income and others that might protect your capital.
You got it. Finding that sweet spot for what you need and what you're aiming for.
So we've been talking about gold as a way to protect against inflation and uncertainty in the economy. But with all the changes happening in the world, technology going crazy, digital currencies popping up, do you think gold will still be relevant in the future?
That's the big question, isn't it? Will this ancient metal still have a place in our digital world? It's almost like philosophical, right?
It really is.
There are definitely different opinions out there. Some folks think gold is, outdated. Its best days are over, and it'll lose value as we move toward a more digital future.
Hmm. I can see that argument.
But others say, no way. Gold's value comes from its qualities. It's scarce, it's durable, it's beautiful, and those things will always make it desirable, regardless of technology.
Yeah, it's like gold's a symbol of value, right? It goes beyond borders and currencies.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it. And I think there's truth to that. Gold has been important to humans for thousands of years. Currency, jewelry, a store of value, a symbol of power, all of that.
It's amazing how much one element has shaped human history.
It really is. And that's part of what makes gold so interesting as an investment. It's not just numbers on a screen. It's real. It has this rich history, and it connects deeply with us on a psychological level.
So the future of gold might be uncertain, but it's had a good run, and people still want it. It seems like it can still be a part of the financial world, even with all the tech advancements.
I think so too. But ultimately, it's a personal decision whether or not you think gold belongs in your portfolio. It's something you have to think about carefully and do your research on.
Well said. So we've talked a lot about gold, but let's zoom out for a second. How does all this fit into the bigger economic picture? Things are kind of crazy right now, to say the least.
Yeah, no kidding. Inflation's at a level we haven't seen in ages, geopolitically things are tense, and the global economy feels shaky.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, especially if you're trying to plan for the future.
I get it. And it's in times like these that diversification and risk management become even more important. You gotta be prepared.
Like batten down the hatches and get ready for the storm.
Exactly. And that's where gold, something real, something that's historically held its value in tough times, can maybe play a role. Not a cure-all, but it can be a helpful tool.
So it's about having a well-rounded strategy, understanding your options, and making smart choices that fit your own situation and goals.
You nailed it. And that brings us back to, doing your homework. If you're thinking about a gold IRA, find good providers, compare fees, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Get all the info you need.
Knowledge is power, right? Speaking of knowledge, what about the custodian for a gold IRA? We haven't talked much about that yet.
Oh, that's important. The custodian is key. They're the ones who hold your gold and make sure it's stored properly in a secure place.
So it's not like I'm keeping my gold bars under my mattress or something.
Haha, definitely not. The IRS has rules about how gold in a gold IRA has to be stored. It has to be with a qualified trustee or custodian in an IRS-approved depository.
Okay, so how do you pick the right custodian? What should people be looking for?
Just like picking a provider, transparency is crucial. You want a custodian who's clear about their fees, their storage methods, and how they keep everything secure.
You don't want any surprises down the line.
Exactly. You also want a custodian who's been around for a while and has a good reputation.
It's like you're entrusting them with something super valuable.
Perfect analogy. And you wouldn't just give a precious family heirloom to anyone, would you? Same with your gold. Do your research. Check out financial websites and publications that have reviews of custodians. See what other people are saying.
So look for unbiased opinions from sources that aren't connected to any specific custodian or provider.
Right. You want the real deal. And don't be shy about contacting the custodians directly. Ask for references from their clients.
That's a good tip. Hearing from people who have actually worked with them, that's valuable.
Definitely. Ask them about their experience, the customer service, any issues they had, that kind of thing.
It's like getting a peek behind the curtain to see how they really operate.
Yeah, exactly. The more information you have, the better decision you can make.
This whole deep dive into gold IRAs has been really eye-opening. We've covered so much, from the basics to the more complex stuff, and even thought about gold's role in the future, which is kind of wild. What's standing out to you the most from all this?
For me, it's this idea of peace of mind. We've talked about the financial benefits, the diversification, the inflation hedge, protecting your wealth. But what it all comes down to for many people is that feeling of security, knowing they have something real, something that's held its value for centuries. It's reassuring.
It's like having a safety net for your financial future. If things get rocky, you've got something solid to fall back on.
I like that. And with all the uncertainty in the world right now, that peace of mind is really valuable.
It's like knowing you've got an emergency fund tucked away. It might not be exciting, but it gives you that feeling of, security.
Exactly. It's about building a strong foundation for your financial future, one that can handle anything.
And that's what retirement planning is all about, isn't it? Thinking long term, managing those risks, and having a plan that matches your goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it's a journey, not a sprint. You're constantly learning, adjusting, and making smart decisions as you go.
Speaking of decisions, what advice would you give someone who's intrigued by gold IRAs? What are some good first steps?
Well, step one, do your own research. Don't just take our word for it. Really dive into gold IRAs. Check out different providers and custodians, read those reviews, compare fees, the whole 9 yards.
Empower yourself with knowledge before jumping in, right?
Absolutely. And once you've done your homework, I'd say talk to a financial advisor you trust. They can look at your whole financial situation, your goals, how much risk you're comfortable with, and help you figure out a strategy that works for you.
So it's like having a financial guide, right? Someone who knows the ropes and can help you navigate it all.
Exactly. A good financial advisor can be so valuable, especially when we're talking about something as specific as a gold IRA. They can help you understand the options, avoid any traps, and make sure your decisions are good for you in the long run.
It's not just about finding the prettiest gold coin. It's about making a smart choice that fits into your overall plan.
That's it. And don't forget, it's your retirement, your future, you're in control. Take your time, get informed, ask those questions, and make choices that feel right for you.
That's so important, taking charge of your financial future and feeling good about the decisions you make.
Absolutely. And remember, financial planning isn't a one-and-done thing. It's ongoing. As your life changes, your goals change, and the economy changes, so should your plan.
It's like tending a garden, right? You've got to nurture it, make adjustments, and be ready for whatever weather comes your way.
Love that analogy. And just like a well-cared-for garden can bring you joy, a well-thought-out financial plan can give you peace of mind and the freedom to pursue what you love in retirement.
So true. Well, I think we've unearthed a treasure trove of information about gold IRAs in this deep dive.
We really have. We've covered the basics, the ins and outs, and even, considered gold's place in our ever-changing world.
And to our listeners, remember, this isn't financial advice. It's about getting you thinking, doing your own digging, and feeling empowered to make smart choices for your unique situation.
If you still have questions, talk to a financial advisor you trust. They can give you personalized advice that fits your specific needs.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those portfolios